She's so disgusting.
Don't you have somewhere to be? Because you're all up in my grill. Jeez.
You look like a preschool student. Did your mom drop you after mom school? Oops, I'm sorry.
Can you excuse us?
Well, why do you guys have to be so rude?
Well, we're gonna leave now because you're all up in our faces and it's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
I'm out. Seriously.
Annoying. God, how come they're friends when they can't be my friend?
What's wrong?
Are you okay?
What's the matter?
Those two girls in that one boy were bullying me.
What did they say?
They said, oh, do you look like a little preschooler? Did your mom drop you off at your mom's school? I'm so sorry. They also said, you're all up in your faces and it's kind of annoying. And they also called me a little phony. She's so disgusting.
Welcome to Happiness in the City. This is Barbara, and today I'd like to talk about a very important matter that concerns many people, and that is what is the difference between nation states and multinational corporations? Because today we have a lot of conflict within traditional countries about their identity versus the presence of multinational corporations in their countries. So let's talk about this very important topic. I will go to the definition in Wikipedia, which is really an amazing starting point to talk about it. There are many books on that topic, but today corporations, okay, so here is the Wikipedia article, and I wanted us to look at this definition. Multinational corporation, in short MNC, a worldwide enterprise, is a corporate organization which owns or controls production of goods or services in at least one country other than its home country. So we have a very good definition here that I will start my remarks with. So we see that multinational corporation is concerned with ownership and control of production of goods or services, or both. So we have a situation in which there is presence of a government in a given country and multinational corporations that may have home in this particular country or may have home in another country under a different government. So we are beginning to see that in order for us to understand current conflicts, we have to look at the relationship between a government and multinational corporation, and multinational corporation and many governments that are connected to its presence. So it's a very important topic. In order for us to understand why there is so much unhappiness in the world, we have to understand the difference of the purpose of a government of a particular nation or a particular region and economic production within that country. Governments have been instituted by God as authority to organize peace within a given realm. God calls himself King who runs Kingdom of God. So the presence of governmental authority is deeply grounded in the creation of social life. Those of you who understand Christianity know that Jesus is called King of Jews and King of Kings. Eventually he became king of the Roman Caesar. Constantine I became a Christian Caesar, Christian king, from pagan Caesar to Christian Caesar, who is ruled by King Jesus Christ of Nazareth. So authority of a government is connected with command and mission given by God himself to organize social life in ways in which people can thrive, feel safe, have all the things that they need to live, like food, clothing, housing, relationships, jobs, or activities that create some connection to work, because not everybody can work, but everybody can do something useful, even if it's just taking care of himself or herself, or taking care of another person. So the mission of a particular government has divine purpose. Even if it is a pagan government, the purpose is still divine, to create peace. If a government were to betray that mission and defy God on this and create a situation in which people in a given country perish, then of course that government would betray its fundamental mission. But government under this authority from God cannot be shut down, because it is essential to provide conditions of peace in a country. In contrast to this, a corporation doesn't have a divine purpose. The purpose is to create production of goods, create ways of ownership of those goods, control the production of goods, and control the distribution of goods. A corporation has mission to employ people, to be successful in terms of not going bankrupt. Their purpose is to create goods that people want to buy. So the mission is market-oriented mission. The connection between divine purpose of the government and a corporation is connected with value established by the fact that the government's mission is to control the currency that organizes peaceful relationships in a given country or in a given region. So in this situation there is an overlap between the mission of a particular government and a corporation. Now, when there is multinational corporation, that connection becomes complicated because more governments are involved, more currencies, and the corporation gets involved with matters of governmental mission, and ideally it should be in harmony with those ideals of governmental authority. But national corporation is not the same as a government, because the mission of a government and the mission of a corporation are different. Multinational corporation is connected with the mission involving production of goods and services. Government has a purpose to provide peace and services for those who are under its authority. And the government's mission is blessed by God Himself. The mission of a corporation and or multinational corporations can also be blessed by God, but it's from a different perspective because of the difference of the mission that a given corporation has. So there are two different organizations, and we have to understand that. And corporations have to understand that as well. There is now a situation in which some corporations call themselves stateless corporation. In other ways, they do not identify any particular country and government as the home country with the home government. And that is something that is a new phenomenon. It doesn't mean it's bad, but it means that the mission of such a corporation is disconnected from the mission of the government whose purpose is to provide peace. So we have to really understand those developments, and we have to create order between governments and multinational corporations. Because what is happening today, there is a lot of fear that governments are losing their authority to provide peace within a particular country, within a particular nation, and the nation becomes filled with anxiety of displacement and abandonment. And many people pray to God about it, because the corporation and a multinational corporation that is made up of many corporations, or is corporation that is made up of many national connections, they don't have the duty to provide housing for the nation, to provide social security, to provide all kinds of safety net services, to create and provide for the military, the police, the courts, and all of those structures that are essential for the existence of a government, that give a particular government strength to organize peaceful relationships in a given nation. Peace is a way to provide presence of governmental help. Many of you, when feeling threatened or in a threatening situation, call the police and the police has building and is organized to send help, and we expect that. We expect the police to help us in order to restore peace in any given situation that is needed for that strength to be used. And multinational corporation has private security, but we cannot call them to help us if we are not part of that corporation and part of that corporation structure. So a nation that doesn't have resources for police and all the resources go for the structures of corporate security feels a lack of sense of security and safety. So we have to look into the way to organize the relationships between governments and multinational corporations in ways that understand the powerful mission that governments have to the nations that are under the authority. In other words, we have to understand the difference in the nature of authority of governments and the nature of organization of multinational corporations. When we have sophisticated understanding of those two differences, we'll have less conflict in relationships between governments and multinational corporations. Now there is a huge conflict in Europe between nations that have thousands of years of history of the identity and forces that try to eliminate those legacies and replace them with presence of transnational corporations that have no national identity. And that creates wounds in the heart of those nations and creates a very dangerous situation for the governments of those nations, because those governments feel that they are losing authority over the nations, and that authority is not replaced, it's eliminated and creates vacuums. So we have to come back to very calm ways to resolve those conflicts. I don't believe that using the governmental authorities such as courts is the best way to solve it, because the corporations will attack the courts, try to eliminate them, and then the courts will feel disconnection from the mission of the government, that is to organize peace, because the courts will feel that they will have to create judgments and fines, and that's not the best way to deal with this conflict. We have to create vision of peaceful relationships between governments and multinational corporations in such a way that the mission of governments that is given to them by God is not lost in the development of the presence of global companies. It's very important because the governments have duty to do what they are doing in terms of authority of peace. Multinational corporations don't have that duty. They have a completely different mission to fulfill in their activities. So we have to come back to clarity on those issues, because the government's duty is to care for everybody in a given nation, from little babies being born to the oldest members of a given society. And of course, in modern governments, we have liberty and people take care of themselves, but it is always in the context of the presence of governmental authority and the areas of liberty. In the United States of America, we even have right to liberty that the government is supposed to shield and provide. But without the government shielding the right to liberty, corporations may come in and eliminate it. The corporations can come in and strengthen it, but they don't have duty to uphold right to liberty like the government has. Do you know the difference? The governments have duty to the nations that God gave them to care for the purposes of creating peace among all living members of a given society. Corporations don't have that duty. Their duty is to survive economically so that they don't go bankrupt, and to abide by rules that allow them to function. It's a very different purpose. And today we have many corporations that do amazing things for us, but the fear that entered many nations that their identity is being displaced is now so strong that we cannot ignore it. We have to look into the ways to create peace between the mission that governments of nations have and multinational corporations. So I encourage you to think about that very important topic. I encourage you to create within you a sense of love to the governments that help you live in peace. There is a situation today in which there is a lot of adversarial relationships between members of particular countries and their governments. And it is not the best way to deal with governments. And if you have problems with this, I encourage you to pray to God about it, because He's the one who created all the governments and all governmental authority. So every one of us will be heard by God on those issues. But the purpose would be not to create strife, but to receive wisdom from God and love from God to all of the people who are in the government, so that they can love those that are under the authority, and people who are under that authority can love them. That's agape love, that's neighborly love, love that only God can give us. And that creates a foundation of contentment. Our parents love us, we love our parents. That creates contentment and joy and happiness in the household. I'm lucky because I grew up in a very happy household. I know what it means to have extremely happy childhood. So I know that feeling of contentment and joy and just wonderful acceptance of life can also be received from God to the governments and those who are under governmental authority. Now, in terms of multinational corporations, it's different because their purpose is different. So we go into a different category, so to speak, of blessing. And God blesses the corporations too because they provide goods and services and jobs and help people get their retirement funds. But their duty is different than the duty of a government. So we have to have that understanding, and we have to create peace between governments and multinational corporations so that we benefit from the virtues of both, but we don't get displacement of governmental authority. Thank you so much.